Hello and welcome back to 3ds Max tutorials with me. Today we're going to look at using Tyflow to create some ripple waves and have some really cool effects using that. So to begin, we're going to have a plane. Drag that out. We're going to probably make it 150 by 150. And we're going to have about 100 by 100 segments. We're also going to turn edge faces off so we can see them in there. We're then going to come into the create panel and there's space warps. We are going to then come down to geometric / deformable and click on ripple. So from about the middle, we're going to then click and drag this ripple out to cover most of the form and give it some definition as well. We are going to make this about 4 for both amplitude 1 and 2. Make this wavelength 30. So we are then going to select the plane, come up into this bind to space warp, and you're going to click and drag till you can highlight that ripple effect. And as we can see, that comes up. So if we now turn off the edge faces, we can see that that ripples. Next thing we're going to do is make it ripple. So at the moment it won't ripple. We're going to firstly come down to these settings and make the length at about 200 and hit OK. That way we've got more keyframes down here. Since it doesn't yet ripple, we're then going to come down to auto key, move it up to frame 200 and put in the phase -4. Make sure that auto key is selected and we can see as we go through here that then moves through. We can unhit auto key. We can now select. I'm going to hide that selection so we get rid of the ripple space warp. So now we can see that's starting to look really cool. So you might want to just output that as an animation itself and be really proud of yourself, but we're going to go a little bit further and use Tyflow. So from here we're going to start playing with Tyflow. So we're going to come into create, standard Tyflow, bring that somewhere on the board, and I accidentally hit 2, so we're going to just quickly delete one. There we go. We're then going to have it selected, come into modifier and open the editor. So if you haven't seen Tyflow before, this is its little editor. Any of these little icons will come up with what you can do in each of them. So it's really cool, like a little particle system, similar to the particle system already in Max, but it's had a little bit of editing so you can have multiple different things running at once and it works a little bit better. We're going to start off using a burst surface, so we're going to click and drag that into the window. And then from there we're going to pick a surface and select the plane. So if I scooch this little thing over a little bit, we can see that there's some particles on the plane right now. So at the moment it doesn't really do much, but it changes throughout wherever you are. We're now going to add these little points as cubes. So we're going to come down, we're going to find shape. So over here, click and drag that above your display. We're going to come down to 3D and find cube. We're then going to change this display from small dots to geometry. So if we zoom in here, we can now see that our cubes are formed around those points. Now, as we can see, they are still not moving. The squares aren't moving with our plane and our ripple. So we're going to add an object bind. So put that in below the shape. We're then going to pick our surface, lock to surface, and snap to surface. So from there, they'll then move with the surface. So this does look really cool in itself, but we're going to push it a little bit further. We are going to get those to shrink and grow depending on their heights. So we're going to put a scale in here, just below the shape. We're going to have that on time. So we're going to have that as a continuous. And we're going to come down here to the scale and hit absolute. We're now needing to scale to proximity. So if we come down, we've got proximity. So we can add it to proximity. So to make it go shrink as we go down, I'm going to add a little box. So pull that underneath. And we're going to have that box be the same dimensions as our plane. And that doesn't need to be too bad, but -1 maybe. There we go. We're now gonna grab this box, come into a side view and move it up just so it's above. So I might add a little bit more thickness up to it, just so we can see. So I make sure it is just above the highest wave. So we can see that that doesn't come any higher than that. We're then going to come into this proximity, multiply proximity. We're going to pick this plane, or this box. We can then make sure that this box is selected and hide selection. Now, it might not really look like anything has changed yet, and it's because the distance of this proximity is a little bit too high, so I might move it down to about 2 centimeters. And then we can see that the closer they are, the bigger they are. We can have it so they can get even smaller, so we make this maybe 15, 10. And we can see that they get really small when they drop as far away as possible. So you go through that and it looks really cool, like you've actually put a ripple in, but you haven't really done that much work. So now we're going to add some colour. We're now going to add some colour to it, so we are going to come across to custom properties. If I can find where it went. There we are. And stick that just under the berth. Once we've got this, we're going to have the timing for continuous, so it matches up with what we've got already happening. And we're going to come down and have the keyframe. Oh, no, okay. We're going to come down to custom float and have it the scale magnitude. And then I'm going to save this channel as scale. Now I've just got to add the colour. So we're going to come down and put a mapping just under or just before the display. We're going to have that timing again with continuous to keep it all together. And we're going to come down, mode, whoop, where'd it go? No, stop. We're then going to come down to mapping from data. We're going to go down and select mapping from custom float. From here we can have the drop down and we can see our scale channel in there, and that'll map that for us. Now I've just got to add the materials. So I'm going to come up here, open the materials editor. I'm going to get rid of that one. And we're going to create new material. So the easiest thing for color would just be to put this color curve gradient in. We're then going to come into our materials editor and we're going to look up for gradient ramp. So we're just going to type in gradient and click the ramp in here. So from here we'll need some different colors. So I might go from a blue bring that to a darker blue. Okay. And do that with all of them. We're going to add some different colours. So once you've got the colours, we're going to select this Tyflow and we can click and drag that straight into that Tyflow. I don't know why that didn't want to work. So we're then going to go to material and assign material to selection. So it might not look like we've got anything yet, but we'll get that mapped in. We'll then need to come back to Tyflow and click enable in this normalizing values to be able to get the materials to show up. Now we may or may not see that yet, and that might depend on your viewport settings. We then need to come over and play with these minimum and maximum values. So I might start at 5 and see if that does anything. We're also going to change our plane color to black. That way it will show the colors the best, most even. Alright, so we're going to pull in a material. So we're going to type in PBR and put in a PBR material. We're also going to come down until you find the curve color gradient, just because it's an easy gradient tool to be able to use. I'm going to shove the output of that one into the base color and then click and drag that onto your Tyflow. From there we'll then see that the color has changed, and we're going to have to change that a little bit through here. So we're going to come back into our mapping and the normalizing values. We might see what that like is on 2. So there we are, we've got a little bit better of a colour. I can see the green is the lowest and the pinky purpley blue is the highest. I can continually change that depending on what colour you want. So we might want a bit more of the blue, so we might try 3. And there's a bit more of the purpley blue colour. So I like the 2, so I'm going to stick with the 2. Once we are happy with that, we also need to add a mesh, otherwise it will not render in the viewport. When we're happy with that, we can then just minimize this Tyflow. Oh, no, we need that open. Oh, no, we don't. It's just that it doesn't start the color for all. Okay. Interesting. We're then going to come into the render setup. I'm going to render with Arnold. I'm going to save, put it in a new folder. We're going to name it how we want. So Tyflow Ripple. Make sure that you save it as a JPEG, and that way we can bring it into Photoshop and create an animation for it. And we can hit save. That'll then come up with some qualities. We're going to put it as the best because we can. We're going to have that output ratio as a high definition 1920 by 1080. And we're going to do the active time segment and then hit render. As you can see in the rendering window, I have only zoomed in on the portion of it. You can zoom in so you can see a really close-up ripple. You can put your camera position wherever you want. And we might want to reduce the gloss as well, as we can see that that's really glossy in that outcome. If you haven't already watched it, watch my creating an animation tutorial through using 3ds Max with Photoshop to create a little animation.